A 7-year-old girl disappeared after walking just 4 houses from home. 35 years later. No body, no answers, only one chilling statement from her own father. June 23, 1991. 7-year-old Jennifer Patterson walked out of her home in Holly Hills Mobile Home Park in Spring Lake, North Carolina. She was wearing a white one-piece swimsuit decorated with colorful square patterns. Before leaving, she told her mother she was going to play with 2 boys who lived just 4 houses away. It was a walk that should have taken less than a minute. But Jennifer never came home that very afternoon. Authorities launched a massive search operation. More than 200 police officers, volunteers, and soldiers from nearby Fort Bragg combed through the neighborhood, surrounding woods, river banks, and abandoned buildings for 3 straight days. The result: not a single trace, not a single piece of evidence, not a single clue explaining what happened to the 7-year-old girl. More than 35 years have passed, and Jennifer Patterson has never been found. Her disappearance remains one of North Carolina's most haunting unsolved missing child cases. But what makes this case even more disturbing is where the investigation eventually led as detectives dug deeper. Their attention gradually focused on someone no one expected. The person they came to suspect more than anyone else was Jennifer's own father. So how does a 7-year-old girl disappear in broad daylight, just a few houses from home? Why did her father fail a polygraph examination? And why did he once tell investigators that Jennifer was still alive, only to suddenly take back everything he had said? This is the story of Jennifer Patterson. Jennifer Patterson was born on January 13, 1984, and grew up in the small town of Spring Lake, North Carolina, just outside the gates of Fort Bragg. It was a quiet community where children spent their days playing outside, and neighbors knew one another by name. On the surface, Jennifer's childhood seemed no different from that of any other 7-year-old, but behind the doors of the Patterson home, the family was going through a difficult time. Jennifer's parents, Alan and Ginger Patterson, were divorced, yet they continued living under the same roof. Their relationship had become increasingly strained as a bitter custody dispute reached a critical point. In just a few days, Alan was scheduled to undergo a paternity test to determine whether he would be legally responsible for paying child support for Jennifer at the time. No one could have imagined that these family tensions might have anything to do with what was about to happen. But in the years that followed, those very details would become some of the first things investigators took a closer look at. On the afternoon of June 23, 1991, it was a beautiful summer day in Spring Lake. Jennifer put on her favorite one-piece swimsuit and happily told her mother she was going to play with 2 neighborhood boys who lived just 4 houses away, a walk that should have taken less than a minute. Jennifer's mother watched her daughter leave the house, never imagining that it would be the last time she would ever see her. At approximately 1:15 p.m., Jennifer left home. At first, nothing seemed unusual. She simply told her mother she was going to play with 2 neighborhood boys who lived less than a minute's walk away. But as the hours passed, Jennifer never came home. As daylight began to fade, concern quickly turned into panic. At around 6 p.m., Jennifer's family contacted the police to report her missing. That same evening, the Spring Lake Police Department launched a massive search operation. More than 200 people, including police officers, volunteers, and soldiers from nearby Fort Bragg, were mobilized to search the area. They checked every abandoned building. They searched every ditch. They pushed through the dense woods, along the banks of the lower Little River. No place was left unexplored. The search continued around the clock for 3 days. But on June 26, 1991, authorities were forced to officially suspend the ground search. Jennifer Patterson was still nowhere to be found. Not a single piece of clothing, not a single footprint, not a single piece of physical evidence, and not a single credible witness who could explain what had happened to the 7-year-old girl. It was as if Jennifer had simply vanished without a trace. When the massive search failed to uncover any trace of Jennifer, investigators began expanding the scope of the investigation. As is common in many missing child cases, those closest to Jennifer were among the first people interviewed and carefully examined as the investigation progressed. Jennifer's father, Alan Patterson, gradually became one of its primary focuses. According to publicly available investigative records, Alan agreed to take a polygraph examination. The results reportedly raised concerns for investigators and prompted further questioning. However, it is important to note that polygraph results are not considered definitive proof that someone is lying or guilty of a crime, and they are generally not admissible as evidence in many courts. Then, in August 1991, Alan made a statement that added another layer of mystery to the case. He told investigators that Jennifer was still alive and was being cared for by someone else. According to case records, he also asked whether he could be granted immunity from prosecution if the information he provided led to Jennifer's recovery. Not long afterward, however, Alan withdrew the statement. He later explained that what he had said was merely speculation and was not based on any first-hand knowledge. The inconsistencies in Alan's statements led investigators to continue scrutinizing him throughout the investigation. Even so, to this day, he has never been charged with or convicted of any crime related to Jennifer Patterson's disappearance. Investigators also examined Jennifer's family circumstances at the time of her disappearance. Alan and Jennifer Patterson were divorced, but continued living under the same roof while involved in an ongoing custody dispute. According to the case records, Alan was also scheduled to undergo a paternity test to determine whether he would be legally responsible for paying child support for Jennifer. Investigators considered these circumstances as part of their effort to evaluate every possible lead, but they were never treated as evidence that a crime had been committed. Meanwhile, Jennifer's mother, Jennifer Patterson, consistently maintained that her daughter had been abducted by a stranger. She was the one who reported Jennifer missing that same evening, and according to the publicly available investigative records, there is no indication that her statements contained any significant inconsistencies. The investigation also included a witness who claimed to have seen Jennifer talking to an unidentified man near a convenience store in the area. The man was described as shirtless and having an unkempt beard. However, investigators were never able to independently verify the account, and the man's identity has never been established. As a result, the sighting has remained only one possible lead in the investigation, rather than confirmed evidence of what happened to Jennifer. More than 3 decades later, what really happened to Jennifer Patterson? To this day, Jennifer Patterson has never been found. No one has ever been charged, and no official explanation has been established for her disappearance. Over the course of the investigation, detectives explored several possible scenarios. However, 3 theories have received the most attention over the years. Theory 1. Jennifer was abducted by a stranger. This is the theory Jennifer's mother has consistently believed. It stems from the fact that Jennifer disappeared in broad daylight within an incredibly short window of time. According to the case records, one witness reported seeing Jennifer talking to an unidentified man near a convenience store in the area. The man was described as shirtless and having an unkempt beard. In addition, Holly Hills Mobile Home Park was a busy neighborhood with people coming and going throughout the day. In theory, this could have allowed a stranger to approach Jennifer without immediately attracting attention. There is also no evidence that Jennifer ever returned home or made it to the house of the two boys. She said she was going to visit. However, this theory has several significant weaknesses. The identity of the unidentified man has never been confirmed. No witnesses reported seeing Jennifer being forced into a vehicle or taken against her will. Investigators found no DNA, physical evidence, or suspicious vehicle linking anyone to a possible abduction. More than 3 decades later, no suspect has ever been identified under this line of investigation. Theory 2. Jennifer suffered an accident in the possibility considered by investigators was that Jennifer may have been involved in an accident after leaving home. The area surrounding the neighborhood included wooded terrain and the nearby Lower Little River. Given that Jennifer was only 7 years old, investigators could not completely rule out the possibility that she wandered off or was injured while exploring. In theory, a fall, a drowning, or another accident in a remote area could have occurred without anyone witnessing it. However, this theory also faces a major challenge. Within hours of Jennifer's disappearance, more than 200 people joined the search effort. Police officers, search and rescue teams, volunteers, military personnel, and tracking dogs thoroughly searched the areas surrounding the place where Jennifer was last known to be. Despite those extensive efforts, investigators found no clothing, no shoes, no footprints, and no physical evidence belonging to Jennifer. For that reason, many observers have viewed the accident theory as becoming less persuasive over time, although investigators have never publicly ruled it out completely. Theory 3. Someone within the family knew more than they revealed from the very beginning of the investigation. Detectives also focused considerable attention on those closest to Jennifer. Among them was Jennifer's father, Alan Patterson, who became one of the primary focuses of the investigation. According to publicly available investigative records, Alan told detectives that Jennifer was still alive and was being cared for by someone else. He later withdrew that statement, explaining that it had been nothing more than speculation rather than information based on first-hand knowledge. Investigators also examined Jennifer's family circumstances at the time of her disappearance. Alan and Jennifer Patterson were divorced, but continued living under the same roof while involved in an ongoing custody dispute. Alan was also scheduled to undergo a paternity test to determine whether he would be legally responsible for paying child support for Jennifer. These circumstances led investigators to continue exploring the possibility that someone within the family might have known more than they had disclosed. However, to this day, no physical evidence has ever linked Alan or any other member of Jennifer's family to her disappearance. No witness reported seeing Jennifer leave with a family member. No body has ever been recovered. No crime scene has ever been identified, and no forensic evidence has ever established that Jennifer was the victim of a homicide. Most importantly, Alan Patterson has never been charged with or convicted of any crime related to Jennifer's disappearance, which theory is the most plausible. More than 3 decades later, none of these theories has been supported by enough evidence to become the official explanation for Jennifer's disappearance. The stranger abduction theory is consistent with the fact that Jennifer vanished almost without a trace, but it lacks both a viable suspect and direct evidence. The accident theory was seriously considered early in the investigation, but the scale of the search and the complete absence of any physical evidence has made it appear less convincing over time. Meanwhile, the theory involving Jennifer's family drew significant investigative attention because of Alan Patterson's statements and the family's circumstances. Even so, those suspicions were never supported by enough evidence to justify criminal charges. Perhaps that is what makes Jennifer Patterson's disappearance so haunting. Every major theory leaves important questions unanswered, and after all these years, the question first asked on the afternoon of June 23, 1991, still has no answer. What really happened to Jennifer Patterson? More than 35 years have passed since Jennifer Patterson disappeared. If she is still alive today, Jennifer would now be 42 years old. But for her family, time seems to have stopped on the afternoon of June 23, 1991. To this day, the case remains unsolved and is still classified by law enforcement as an active cold case. Although many potential leads have faded with time, investigators have never officially closed the investigation. With advances in modern forensic science, particularly in DNA analysis, there is still hope that evidence collected in 1991, if it has been preserved and remains suitable for testing, could one day provide new answers. If you lived in Spring Lake in 1991, served at Fort Bragg, or know anything about Jennifer Patterson's disappearance, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, please contact the Spring Lake Police Department or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children (NCMEC). Sometimes, the smallest memory can become the missing piece that finally solves a mystery that has remained unsolved for more than 3 decades. Jennifer Patterson has never been found. Her family is still waiting for answers, and the question first asked on that summer afternoon in 1991 remains unanswered. What really happened to Jennifer Patterson? Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and turning on notifications so you don't miss future true crime stories. And now, we'd like to hear from you. Which theory do you find the most convincing? Based on the evidence that has been made public, share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.